Welcome to Convicted Patriot Broadcast, your source for real information with no punches held and no apologies issued. See, it's all connected. Right and left. It's an illusion.
See, there's so much, this rabbit hole goes so deep that it's going to take you forever to catch up.
And this is, quite frankly,
a war for our very souls.
I want us all to pray for our country in the direction we are headed. God bless you all, and God bless America. What's up, everyone? What a week. Welcome to Convicted Patriot Broadcast. I am your host, Christian Russ. And tonight, I'm going to, of course, update you on the current war in the Middle East that our government is calling an operation/conflict. And not a war, simply because the technicality of Congress not declaring it. Nevertheless, before we get to that, let me focus on a few things going on that I can't help but just call out. It's so saddening, man, at least for me, because I am proud of where I come from. I'm proud of my lineage, unlike most white Americans today for some reason. Well, I can't even say that because that's me looking at a few quacks online and assuming that there's more of them out there than I see online. And the reality is, probably the majority of people that feel that way about themselves, that are not happy with just being them, they probably primarily live online. Anyway, to the point though, currently in all of New England, like all of it, man, there's no Republican rule because the Democrats have gerrymandered and boxed the Republicans literally all the way out of the way. Like they hold no political weight in that area. And that same type of game plan is spreading into what most would call an unsuspecting area. Primarily, I'm speaking about the current state of affairs in Virginia. Under the new Democrat regime that had spread its tentacles all around the entire state, unfortunately. That's right, man. Like Virginia is under massive decline as they are totally under left-wing rule. And already the first thing that has been to go was firearms. I mean, naturally. Senate Bill 749 just passed the General Assembly on March 14th of this year. So literally it just passed. And it has stripped the citizens of the state of the ability to purchase firearms that are considered assault firearms. Not assault rifles, assault firearms, which is considered to be any pistol, shotgun, or centerfire rifle that has features like pistol grips, threaded barrel, folding, or like telescoping stock, flash suppressor, or thumb hole stock, or an extra hand grip. So basically, like you can have a revolver. Anyway, this also puts a limit on magazine capacity to a max of 15 rounds, which, I mean, that's not the end of the day. Of course, if people were coming at you like people that were allowed to have 75-round clips, 30-round clips, and things like that, magazines, correct word, like the government, if they were coming at you, it would, be very convenient to be able to match their firepower and magazine capacity. Of course, that is probably the reason that they have limited it to 15 rounds. And a state that literally has the Gadsden flag on their license plate, allowing themselves to be treaded on like a fucking doormat. It's such a sad thing to see, especially being that the state I live in borders that tragedy. And I'd be a fool to think that the Democrat succubus wouldn't reach out and try to pull my state into the abyss with it. Anyway, on that same vibe level, though, let me jump to the UK real quick. And let's revel at the last few dying breaths of the United Kingdom. To think that this great country of ours, currently America, the United States, came from the loins of that once great country of theirs is almost unimaginable now. But just as a few years ago, we were headed there on that crazy woke progressive highway too. I can say that's one thing. I'm happy Donald Trump turned around. He kind of took the gay out the matrix, but he didn't take America out of the matrix. We're still stuck in the system. And all of you that still think that there is left versus right or black versus white or anybody cares about your race, or if you do care about race or you do care about left and right, then you are indeed still in the system. Definitely not a neo type way. The United Kingdom, they've allowed themselves to lose so much dignity and hand it over to foreigners, really, for the sake of virtue signaling, being politically correct. They allow mass rape to occur over and over and over and over. And it's been like that since the 90s. Elon Musk had a big thing about it, expose, I guess you would say, even though, I mean, it should be widely known since it's been happening for, almost 40 years. But with the ever-growing shame on the white people for absolutely everything in liberal places, the government has failed to prosecute so many. With red-handed evidence, tens of thousands of pages of testimony from women whom escaped or let go after long periods of incarceration and sexual torture. Always white women, always brown perpetrators, and I don't mean African American. Why? Like I said, because most of them are Muslims. And you have to remember that they let anyone into their country in the UK, no matter what, because it's the virtuous thing to do. And when these people come in without being asked to assimilate, because that would be racist, they bring their conflicts and their culture and their values, or lack thereof, with them. So being that women, especially white women, are viewed without equality and with contempt, someone isn't worth a shit, you think that they aren't worth a shit, or you think that they think that they're better than you, it's okay to snatch them up and have your way with them, Remind them of their place in society and the world. And that's how they see it. And it's not my opinion, because like I said, it's been happening over and over and over and over for decades now. And no one goes to jail because that would be racist or Islamophobic or whatever the hell they put on the end. Cyst. Anyway, but what do they do on average per day? About 30 times a day in the UK? They arrest people for online posts. That's right. No freedom of speech in the country that wrote the Magna Carta, the Great Charter. Anyway, the irony, and even more so on the loss of their tradition, is the dissolvement of the House of Lords. Now, their House of Lords is equivalent to the American Senate. The House of Commons is parallel to the House of Representatives. And what does this mean? Well, their House of Lords isn't like something you're voted into. It's like a royalty type deal. So with that, I can hear both sides of this argument. One that's glad because being born into a lineage doesn't mean that you're intelligent or even a capable leader. Thus, the headache of a moron here and there can possibly be avoided in a true democracy. But then again, you do lose the very important aspect, or you have a possibility of losing the very important aspect of having a true Brit as your representative. And I know that may seem minor, but it's actually a huge deal, bro. Like, it has a lot to do with the issues in our very own country. And that's having leaders that make huge, impactful decisions in the office that have more allegiance for their other country than they do this one. That being said, the United Kingdom is once again losing another piece of itself to a new world order that would undoubtedly continue to drag them down into a spiral until they lose control of their very own country to a foreign force that they allowed to infiltrate them willingly. Wake up, America. You're not immune to these things, and you're sleepwalking into it. Now, to the heavy stuff. This past Wednesday, in a White House gaggle, President Trump, a week ago today, made a pretty shocking statement that sounded kind of scary. He mentioned that we have weaponry that could make Iran uninhabitable in less than an hour. But wait a minute. Weren't we told, or at least one of the reasons, that we went in was to serve as the justice for the innocent civilians that were killed? Because, nuking all of them totally makes sense in that case. And I mean, let's not forget, the estimates of civilian deaths in Gaza are closing in on 200,000, and the IDF willingly admits to more than 90,000 of them. So, just human nature alone means you probably got to double that. But 2 days later, last Friday, Netanyahu made a statement saying that we will make it to the return of the Messiah, but that will not happen by next Thursday. Okay, seems innocent enough. I've went into detail before about how the radicals believe that they can push start the end times and bring back their Messiah, yet somehow people ignore this and don't correlate it with that belief. It's been said over and over, that statement that he simply meant that basically it's going to end, but it won't be anytime soon kind of deal. But I mean, that uneasy feeling that you just got hearing about this, yeah, that's your gut firing off signals that something didn't feel right about it. And you shouldn't ignore your gut. Next Thursday, also, the next Thursday he mentioned also happens to be the last day of the Jewish observance of, Lord, I'm probably going to butcher this, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. You got to add the heavy anyway, which is basically symbolizing a new chapter in the year. But when it comes to Bibi himself, whether you knew it or not, this war is another stall out on this court verdict of his. The prime minister of Israel plays a huge part in a war. He's necessary. Not to mention that while holding office in Israel, you weren't held in jail until after conviction. And in his case, he has cases pending for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Not that anyone takes it serious either, but the ICC, the International Court, also has warrants out for his arrest pertaining to war crimes in Gaza. But I mean, like I said, it's a joke. Radicals from all walks of life have been crazy for a long time. I mean, you can take like Albert Pike, the famous Freemason from the South. Pretty sure he was a general in the Civil War. Pike was supposedly quoted in 1871 in a letter where he laid out the world wars, all of them, ending with World War III, and saying that it would be a war that had to do with a group of Muslims and Jews, and that would indefinitely bring a Luciferian nation. And that kind of aligns with the doctrine of forcing the rebuilding of a temple to bring back the Messiah, the Antichrist, and in some cases, fulfill prophecy, I suppose. That whole thing got to me, and I started thinking the other day about something else too, and I could totally be wrong. I've been wrong before, once or twice. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. Like I said, I could be wrong, but since biblically it says that all nations will turn on Israel, well, maybe that's also a prophecy they're trying to force by doing some of the most obviously heinous shit that they do. I mean, I suppose it is possible that it's all done with the sole intent to make you disgusted. It wouldn't be the wildest shit that I've ever uncovered, that's for sure. And I mean, bro, you've all heard the numbers. 109 countries, only 2% of the population, but a massive percent of the wealth. And you literally call everyone that's not in line with your doctrine cattle. You call us cattle. And you think that your Messiah comes back and we have to serve you, 2,800 per one of you. I literally just seen a video yesterday where a rabbi was telling his congregation, whatever you call the congregation of a synagogue, but a rabbi was explaining how as long as it was a goy baby under 3 years old, female, that is, you could sleep with her. It's okay because her hymen will grow back and there will be no psychological damage because they won't remember. So they don't lose their virginity and they don't have any psyche damage. So it's okay as long as it's a cattle. Goy, it's got to be a goy. Anyway, one of the most unfortunate outcomes here is the possibility that we could be replaced as one of the world's superpower. We could, and we're currently working on just that. It's not always about military strength, but also about the reputation of a country and its trustworthiness. And we have beyond shamed ourselves long ago as far as being a country that is dependable for things like paying back debt. But one thing that we have always done is found a way into a lucrative industry and how to make money off of it. We just had such a solid foothold in the Gulf monarch countries, the GCCs, and we even controlled the Strait of Hormuz before all of this. Did you really think that we have all those military bases all over there just to protect Israel? I mean, we probably honestly did that for the most part, but one main component of their existence was to provide security and control to the strait that is responsible for handling 26% of the world's oil trade. See, we have allowed all of our Gulf allies to be attacked by Iran for simply having a U.S. base on their soil, and we have done nothing in response. We actually moved defenses out of those areas where they were also protecting Americans working in the oil industry over there, and moved them to Israel. Bad batteries, things like that. Our agreement was to protect them. That was part of the deal. So now our word looks very sickly. and our dignity and integrity bruised, not only from that, but from the murdering of schoolgirls and the number 2 Shiite Muslim on the planet. But to clarify, we didn't just kill Ali, but we killed his entire family that was with him, including infants. And you remember the commanders we were told that were terminated, the 12? Well, yeah. Yeah. I know, for example, one of them was in an apartment building with 60 other civilians, and they got him by taking down the whole building. See, we have given them a few generations worth of hate to instill in their children and spread the radical mindset further into their future. We create these monsters, literally created damn near every Middle Eastern big name terrorist organization that you can think of, and the ones we didn't create, Israel did. We've handed these people their very own 9/11. Let's not forget that the Ayatollah who was chosen, the former leader's son, who was chosen is the former leader's son. He's who's going to take his place. And not only is he much more militant, but we kind of just wiped out his entire family. So that should go over real well. Maybe that's why the last 2 times that the United States has tried to negotiate a ceasefire, no one's went for it. And of course they wouldn't. Our munitions are getting lower and lower by the day, and it's all but been broadcasted how devastatingly low our supplies were from the very start of this. Being a huge factor in why Dan Kane of the Joint Chiefs said it was a terrible idea. This was a war of choice. This was a war of aggression on our behalf. And I think you know just what that means. Every death that comes out of this, soldier or civilian, it's on us. We have to wear that. The Ayatollah can simply say that if you're a true believer in Allah, you must fight back against the aggressors or oppressors. Or simply the ones that they consider evil. Let's not forget that before this happened, that the state of Iran, they lit a giant statue of Baal on fire right in front of everyone. That signified the ending of the United States and Israeli empire. So if the current Ayatollah, or the one religious ranking higher member than him right now, that's been there forever, just gives the word, that would activate tens of millions of Shiite Muslims around the globe. I don't think you realize just how much danger your life was just put in, simply by being an American. Please, don't be as naive to think that the only people that crossed over that wide open border were all Hispanic. One of the more retarded questions I've gotten from a few people is, when are you going to admit that it worked out, man? After Trump handles all this and gets everyone home in the next few weeks, will you admit that you were totally incorrect? Well, once again, you can ask my wife. As I have done more than once, when my predictions turn out to be wrong, I will get my ass right up on this platform and I will apologize for my substandard hypothesis. And I will, in detail, explain exactly where and how I was wrong. That being said, I will only admit that this worked out if it in fact works out. And being that Trump just admitted on live television that these terrorists surprised brass military when they struck back all the American bases in the GCC countries, like I don't. How did you not see that happening? Like, I knew that was going to happen. This man was really sold on the idea that he can get in and out just like he did in Venezuela. And speaking of Venezuela, are you aware that they cut Israel off from their oil back in 2009? Yeah. Well, funny thing is, since we snatched Maduro up, Israel's already received 470,000 gallons of oil from Venezuela. I bet they have. And I'm sure that wasn't at all planned out beforehand, nor did it have anything to do with the invasion at all. You see, everything connects. And it's not looking good for Israel when it comes to Charlie Kirk either. And I have not been one to jump out there and blame his death on them. Not once. But I mean, man, things just keep getting darker and darker. So apparently, now I'll touch this real quick and get back on what I was saying because this isn't my lane. But apparently Erica got her real estate license and then immediately got to working for the Corcoran Group. Now, the Corcoran Group is an elite real estate company that takes hard work. You have to be like an elite real estate agent or just connections to get into. So in her case, basically connections, because there isn't any listing of her ever selling anything the entire time. But a man by the name of Jeffrey Epstein was a client for this group and was very involved with Next Model Management. Small-time modeling company, it appeared to be anyway, in New York City. Well, they needed places to house these European models. Mind you, Epstein was infamous for trafficking women from Europe, and they used the Corcoran Group to find property. And who was their appointed point of contact at the Corcoran Group? Their new employee, Erica Kirk. See, this company was owned by the Rothschilds. Ever heard of them? Whom Epstein himself directly admitted to working for. Just saying. Erica also started an orphanage partnering with the United States Marines in Romania that I'm sure was squeaky clean and didn't at all traffic children. But since everything seems to be connected, I mean, what are you supposed to think? Also found out today that Turning Point was involved with the Harvest Church, which are now going to court for trafficking kids. So I mean, man. We know Charlie was looking into missing millions at Turning Point USA. I believe it was 10 million, and was also vehemently against the war in Iran. He had started looking into Zionism and how it perverted the Jewish religion, and he started speaking out about it. Where once again, his donors came out and pulled $2 million of funding because he wouldn't drop Tucker Carlson. So when you say, missing millions in his organization, he actually started a Doge to try to find it. And then money pooled by the millions. And then he started moving away from Israel and controlled a ginormous portion of the American youth. Who would benefit from this termination? Right. See, Israel has always been a threat to the United States. Back in 1963, Kennedy was against the Israeli nuclear program, and the Federal Reserve Bank, and the CIA. I mean, it's a wonder he lasted as long as he did. But I suppose when they couldn't get him to change his mind by other methods, like Charlie Kirk, they hit Control-Alt-Delete, system reset. And of course, in that case, LBJ immediately greenlit the Israeli nuclear program. Shocker. And then 10 years later with Nixon, Israel almost went nuclear and drug Russia into that. Or almost, drug Russia into that. And the irony of all this is to say that, nukes were a huge part of it. And it was to fix that. But I mean, damn. All I see is it making everyone want nukes. Iran is a clear example of Iran's a clear example of how easily, no matter the size or age or strength of a nation, mind you, Persia's damn near 3,000 years old. If you don't have nukes, you're not a physical threat. Why do you think nobody fucks with North Korea? Exactly. That being said, this seems to have backfired on the whole deterrent tip. This war, specifically, is the first war of my lifetime, and my parents, and my grandparents, and my great-grandparents, that the United States has been involved in and not had control. It seems to be, split between our call and Israel's call. And although I imagine where things sit, it's more so follow the leader. We aren't the leader. We have two countries with two separate agendas. And at some point, they're not going to be able to carry on that way. See, they won't align all the way down the middle. There will be a point where what's good for one is going to be terribly for the other. Possibly more than one, because that seems to be the pattern. And then we will find out where our leadership truly is. See, the American government's whole purpose of existing is to serve the American people. Nothing more, nothing less. Not to be a bunch of boomer generation assholes who have lived their lives already and wants to now send a bunch of Gen Z into the meat grinder to expand the territory of a foreign nation that we bend over frontwards to allow to exist. Netanyahu has been trying to get this United States to bomb Iran off the map for 40 years and admitted to that to the world himself. So this whole imminent threat thing doesn't work because 4 decades later and they haven't produced nor used a nuclear warhead. Netanyahu absolutely sees himself as more than just a historical figure. He thinks that he's this generation's Moses. And he refuses to go into his grave without pushing all of his chips in on this and trying to achieve it. Not only does he see it as his personal mission to expand Israel back to biblical borders, but my father pointed this out to me today. But he sees that the people that will come after him are terribly soft and liberal and won't ever think about pursuing such a violent mission. So it's literally now or never as far as he's concerned. And as Marco Rubio told us, Israel's threatening to go into Iran without us, regardless if we're on board or not, was the reason that we did what we did and when we did it. Well, apparently he duped this administration because according to Tony Blinken, Israel told Obama that same shit and Biden, and they just didn't go for it. It's wild. You know, I thought about something the other day once I seen a story recapping Israel's move on Hamas with the pagers too. I was aware that it blew quite a few Hamas guys' bits off, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with radical Shiite terrorists getting blown to bits, their nuts getting blew off. But I didn't know that thousands of innocent civilians also got blown up at the same time. You see, they sabotaged the entire shipment of pagers and just said to hell with it. While that's vile and disgusting, the thing that got me was that golden pager that he gave President Trump after that event. At first glance, you just concluded to be like, well, Trump likes to go overboard with the gold, and obviously that's no secret. So yeah, that's what this is. It's like a golden laugh between two buddies about a successful mission that blew terrorist nuts off. But seeing all that we've seen now, hearing all that we've heard now, it looks more nefarious than that, doesn't it? And maybe that was the point. I mean, there had to be somebody in Netanyahu's circle that said, hey, sir, that can be perceived kind of. Maybe the whole time the point was simple. Remember, we have your number 2, golden boy. When we sit back and wonder how the hell people can carry on and buy their Starbucks, watch their Netflix, scroll along on social media like there isn't a perpetual world war brewing, it's hard to reason with exactly how that is. And then you look at it like the elites look at us, and you get it. When you're informed of a situation that's tragic or harsh, even if it's not in proximity to you, it doesn't affect you personally, well, then you can move on about your day in a very nonchalant way, can't you? So see, it's all the same. As long as people are insulated from the things that don't concern them, then they will never truly care. I suppose people don't get how much this war will forever, I suppose hypothetically, at this point, although quite probable, change the geopolitical landscape. Powers will rise and fall from this. It's already happening. Alliances will continue to be fractured, quite possibly break. And as it sits right now, the United States is in a very, very hated slot as far as anyone is concerned, especially in the Middle East. And after this is over, I don't see much of a future for us over there. Kind of hard to ensure people you're a good investment or an ally when you can't keep your word to simply protect the ones you promised to. Ladies and gentlemen, it is getting late. And if you've made it this far, I'm going to throw this in here just to see who makes it this far. Found out Monday that I have another baby coming into the world. This will be my 3rd. Pray for me and my beautiful wife. Pray for this country. Thanks for tuning into the show. God bless you all. God bless America.